So again, my name is Leesa Barnes.
And you're tired.
Yes, and I'm officially tired. So is it 4 yet? Is that when we begin?
Yep.
Time to go.
On time.
On time. On target. So how many of you have enjoyed being naked today?
Oh boy.
Okay, how many of you have no clue what I'm talking about? All right. So planning a podcast, many of you have been to a lot of sessions. Either you have a podcast up and running, and this is perfect if your subscriber base has not been growing, or has been growing very small, or very little. Some of you are new, maybe your first, second, or third episodes, and you're wondering, okay, how do I juice this thing up? And others of you have been just going from session to session and hearing all the different ideas. So I always like the planning process. Why do you think I like the planning process? Any guesses why? Any guesses?
Helps ensure success.
Ensure success. Who said that? Jill? Yes. What else?
Anything's possible.
What was that?
Anything's possible at this stage.
Yes.
When
Anything?
you're planning, anything's possible.
Okay. So yes. I'll put limitless.
Keep your focus.
Focus. Yes.
It's free.
It's free. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Free.
You haven't spent anything yet.
Okay. Oh,
Wow.
that's right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, I don't know about
That's
that.
good point.
Oh.
So I'll put low investment. Okay. So all of you know about my trip to Boston. Could someone recount it back to me, somebody, please?
9 hours, took a wrong turn, ended up in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Whatever.
And how long did the trip take?
9 hours.
No,
14
9 plus 9 plus
And then when we
5.
got to Boston, what happened?
You got lost looking for your hotel room.
And would you believe we asked another hotel, they had no clue. We asked a couple of police officers, and they spent a little time conversing in the car before answering us and telling us they didn't know. And we finally asked a cabbie. If you're ever lost, always ask a cabbie. They always know. So finally, now the trip back, and this is something that not a lot of people know, so I'm going to tell you guys. Trip back. Do you think we learned our lesson?
It's all those guys singing in the back seat that was the problem.
Yeah, and they're gone because they knew I was going to talk about this. But I'll give you the story. So we're driving out of Boston. Took the I-95. We should have been on the I-93, or one of them, vice versa. So we're heading out of Boston now. Hit New Hampshire. New Hampshire. So I thought something was off because my geography is pretty good. Like for a girl, I'm pretty good with my directions, right? So I thought something was off. So we stopped at a place called Salisbury. Ate at a restaurant called Salisbury Restaurant. Had
Salisbury.
I didn't. I confess. I did. So when we got back into the car and headed up along again I-95, we hit. Guess which state? Maine.
Uh-oh. Far away from Toronto
So
now.
when I saw Maine, after being on the road for 3 hours, I said to myself, "Yeah, we're going the wrong direction. Yeah, we're going along the eastern seaboard, along the Atlantic Ocean. We want to get back to Toronto."
Your breakfast is very nice.
What was that?
Your breakfast is very nice.
Yes, that's how I But not when Lisa's angry. So,
Go to Canadian Tire and get yourself one of those little compasses you can stick on your back.
yeah, something. GPS,
GPS.
something, road map, like they still make those things. So that whole experience taught me the value of planning. And we've discussed some of the reasons why it's important to plan. So let's look at some tips on how to plan successfully. And my speech is a little off because after 2 hours of sleep, I'm just, I don't know. Yeah.
Baked?
Fried is the word. Baked? No, not baked. Not baked. It's because of the movie The 40-Year-Old Virgin that I understood what baked was, so I immediately
Oh,
took
you
that out
don't
of
use
my
that. I've never seen it.
baked. All right. My God-fearing mother would not be proud. So, planning. Let's start down here. And no, not that. All right. So another reason why we plan is because for each of you in this room, whether you're podcasting as a hobby or for business, one of the things that I like to talk about is using your podcast as breadcrumbs. Part of Anyone know of a nursery rhyme or something where breadcrumbs played a major role? Hansel and Gretel. What happened to them?
They got stuck in an oven by
Lots.
Okay. So the goal here is not the Wicked Witch, I promise you. But it's the breadcrumbs. The breadcrumbs.
Crumbs.
And so Hansel and Gretel used the breadcrumbs to try to find their way back home, right? Yeah. Did they find their way back home? No. They did the first time. And so what did their proud father do? Lead them back into the jungle and leave them behind. So, but in the case of our businesses and podcasts, what we want to do is lay those breadcrumbs to lead people to our offerings, whether it's a website, shopping cart, maybe you're selling merchandise on your website, maybe you just want to have people sign up for your email list. Whatever the case may be, that's what these breadcrumbs are designed to do. And when you plan your podcast, then that's how you're able to know what these breadcrumbs are. So let's talk about restaurants for a minute. McDonald's comes out with a new fish fillet sandwich. It's creamier, it's more deep fried, it's flakier, it's fishier. So, McDonald's is standing outside one of their stores. You walk by. They've got the entire sandwich on a platter. That's the taste test, all right? You go, you grab the fishier fish sandwich, and you eat it. Now, does that prompt you to go back into McDonald's to buy another sandwich? Okay, no, why?
Because I'm full.
You're full. You've gotten everything that you need, right? And so, same thing with your podcast. Many people make this mistake of throwing everything into their podcast. So you record something, maybe a workshop, a presentation. Maybe you record a whole interview with someone famous. And then you throw that into your podcast, and now you've given everything away for free. That means that person's already full, and they have no reason to follow up with you later on. So planning helps you to avoid that. That does not look like breadcrumbs, and that does not look like a plate of food. Yeah, that's what it was supposed to be.
I thought it was the witch's oven.
Yeah, I thought it was fire.
Having fun at my expense.
Sorry.
Yes. All right, so let's look at the steps involved with planning your process. Not your process, your podcast. Okay, so here's the steps. Pen and paper in hand. Everyone has one?
Oh, they're going to download your video.
Ooh, download my video. It's clean, rated PG. Okay, that's step one. Step two. Step three. Step oh. Step. Okay. So this is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7-step process in your podcasting strategy. And this is important. I'm telling you all this right now because this is being recorded. I can take the recording, transcribe it, and include all this in my book, which is coming out later on this year. So, but it's also because you need to learn this too. So it's not all self-serving, I promise. So the first step in your podcast strategy is to assess. And we're going to talk about assess and the plan sections today. So you assess whether or not you should be podcasting, because not everyone should be, not everyone needs to be. And sometimes what you think should be a podcast is really just audio on a website. Second step is to plan. Third step is produce. Some of you have been learning a lot about production techniques, and some of you are just clearly not ready for this stage. 4 is to build your audience. 5 is to promote it. Then you profit, and then you measure. So we're going to focus on this section right here. All right? So in terms of assessing whether or not you should be podcasting, what are some things you should ask yourself?
Technical savvy of your target audience.
Technical savvy of your target market.
Am I committed?
Commitment, yes.
Why am I doing this?
Why am I doing this? Anything else?
Do I have the resources?
Do I have the resources?
Do I have something to say?
Do I have something to say? What else?
Who cares? Good one.
Customers, competition,
Does anyone care?
Does anyone want to listen?
collaboration.
Frequency, that's a one-off, or is it something that you can build upon and keep fresh?
Isn't it like any other product? Are you saying something unique or different? You know, what's your differentiator?
I'm sorry, someone over here said something?
I was just saying frequency, is it just a one-off, or is it something that you can speak about regularly and keep fresh? Is it relevant?
All right. So let me ask some of you in this room who have been podcasting, why did you start? Yes.
A way to build community?
Okay.
I wanted to reach more people with less effort.
Wanted to reach more people left. I can't speak. What was that?
Wanted to be able to reach
More people with less effort. Okay. Anyone else? Why did you start podcasting? Yes.
Just to educate
Uh-huh.
people. There are a lot of, people going up the ladder, as it were, in our industry, and they need that resource.
Okay.
Give
Yes.
people a sense of your personality that the written word of the blog might not.
Right. All the answers are coming from this side of the room.
Because I could.
Oh, because you could.
Is that easy?
Yeah. Good one. Yes.
Because I egotistically think I have something to say.
Yeah. It's all about ego.
It's all about me.
It's all about me. Anyone else? Why you started podcasting? All great reasons. And again, for you, you have to reflect upon yourself and ask, why do I want to do this? And again, some of you might say that I don't have the technical savvy, and that maybe my audience doesn't either. But again, you need to do your research, because as you learned earlier, it's not just young people listening to these things. That the majority of podcast listeners are between 25 and 50. Yes. And that's consistent across every type of stats that I found worldwide. Commitment, why? Do I have the resources? Who cares? And how would some of you answer some of these questions? Like, how would you go about finding information for some of these questions?
Do 2 hours of research a week in order to ensure you have the time commitment.
Yes. I can
You
hire.
can't do the 2 hours of research in a week, then you're screwed if you want to actually produce it.
You're screwed. Love it. You're screwed. Anyone else?
Listen to your audience.
Listen to your audience.
If you're
How?
already blogging, people
Yes.
might think, oh, well, are you going to do a workshop? Are you going to do a course?
Okay.
So this might be a reason to do it.
And then how are people communicating with you on your blog?
Email, comments,
Okay. No trackbacks?
private joke.
Anyone else? How would you answer some of these questions? What are some tools or techniques that you can use in order to get at those answers to figure out whether podcasting would be right for you? Yes?
You could plan out on a spreadsheet, like, in terms of your commitment, say, right, what's this going to mean for the whole of the next 3 months? I'm going to make this work in terms of resources, in terms of commitment, in terms of inputs that you need to put into it.
Right. Yes?
Learn from other people's experience. So ask people who are doing it now and find out what it took for them to get to where they are. And see if you can reach them.
Absolutely.
Google.
Google.
Yeah. See what other people have. Look in iTunes too.
Yeah,
Look in the
Google.
podcast directory.
Yeah. So Bill had an interesting post on his blog. This is all going to tie in. Talking about, what was it, the taxi cab driver?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. History?
Mr. Geography.
Mr. Geography.
Yes.
I only wrote it. You wrote it. What do I know?
So you sat in the cab with Mr. Geography.
Mr. Geography.
And apparently you ask him any place in the world, you ask him for the capital of any country in the world, and he's able to tell you. And so you wanted his contact details? Or someone that
Yeah,
you
and
know?
he just told him Google me.
Google me. So this is homework for you. I'd like you to Google your own self, your own name.
Ego search.
Ego search, vanity search, whatever you call it. I'd like you to do that, and I want you to figure out where you appear on Google. Number one? Yeah, me too.
It's not really that hard necessarily for your own name.
No, but it depends.
But you can hear me.
Yeah, because my name is Leesa, and it's Leesa. This all has a point to podcasting, believe me. Okay, first name is Leesa. Cursed my mother the day that she spelled my name this way. I thought it was some big cruel joke. And so I asked her, why do you spell this way? She said L-I-S-A is Lisa. Leesa. But now.
You not in a Google search for L-I-S-A Barnes, do you?
No. Yeah. But if you do L-E-E-S-A Barnes, then I dominate. And the only other Leesa that appears is on page 25, and she's a jewelry person or something like that. So it's pretty clever that this happened this way. So if you have a unique spelling of your name, that would work, right? If you don't, you're screwed. I like that word today, you're screwed. And so getting a podcast out there is one way to help you really get up in those rankings. I don't understand how search engines work, really. So don't ask me, but I just know that podcasting can help you towards that. All right, any questions, any comments about assessing your interest in podcasting before you start? Any questions? No? So is it like a long day? Are you guys dead because I'm dead, or is it because 2 hours of sleep and I'm now feeling it. I'm not as young as I used to be. All right, so let's talk about the planning stage. So we said, there's ways in which I can assess myself, my audience, my interest, and figure out this is what I want to do. And so the next step is planning. And so we discussed before what planning is all about. Here, this is where you start to plan, okay, who's going to be my listeners? Who's going to be, what is each episode going to look like? But in particular, one of the things I like to tell people is that when you're planning your episodes, when you're planning your content, you don't necessarily focus on your target market. You focus on the problem that you want to provide solutions for. So the question you need to ask yourself is, what problem am I good at solving, and for whom? What problem am I good at solving, and for whom? What problem am I good at solving, and for whom? So think about that for a moment. Think about that for a moment. And it's from that list of problems that you come up with that you can then start to generate those list of solutions. And then those solutions then become episode topics. So anyone want to share some of the problems that they're good at solving?
Space and time.
Space and time.
I record events and things where, someone from Minnesota or Buffalo or Korea couldn't get to, but they can access that knowledge, that information at any one time that's convenient to them.
Okay, so that's one solution, that's a problem that you have acknowledged and you have solutions to provide. Anyone else want to share their problem that they're good at solving? Yes.
I don't know if I'm good at solving it, but the problem would be how to entertain. And then the solution would be different approaches to entertaining.
How to entertain.
And to me, solving it is about approaches and not necessarily.
So what type of entertaining is that? Is that like hot, oily men and dancing on cakes or something?
Well, it sounds so. It's about conversation or informing people, but in an entertaining way, or doing sound scene audio in a way that people want to listen to. Because not all sound scene audio is interesting.
Absolutely. So how to entertain. All right. Anyone else want to share the problem that they're good at solving? Or do anyone not have a clue?
Students trying to address.
Yeah.
We haven't spoken about it yet.
And that's why you're here, right?
That's right.
Figure those things out.
How to answer students' questions about the application process.
Oh, that's good. And this is application process to get into your particular?
Yes.
Okay. So that's good.
What makes a good portfolio?
So, okay. So can I use your topic for a moment?
Sure.
Yeah, okay. So here's the issue. What's your first name again?
Susan.
I can see from you. Susan. Susan's from York University. And so the problem she wants to address is helping new students understand the application process. So she decides that we're going to do a podcast. And we're going to take the most frequently asked questions and then provide those answers. So what are some episode topics that she can come up with? Maybe, Susan, you might want to give us
All
some.
right, I can name a few off the top of my head. What grade do I need?
Okay, grade point average.
Prereqs.
Okay. Prereqs.
What should I put in my portfolio?
Portfolio. What else? Do you guys remember university? Applying for university, or was it
What
that
makes
long
a
time
good
ago?
research statement
Research statement.
for grad studies? You have
Oh,
to put in
okay.
a statement of interest and,
Research statement.
yeah.
Reference letters and references.
Ooh,
Which residence should I put?
Post-op and money.
That's always a big one.
I had no idea it was such a broad topic.
What else?
What's Canada like?
Oh. Awesome.
Is there kosher food on campus? Is it Jamaican radio station? That was the question.
What?
Jamaican radio station.
Male to female ratio.
And my boyfriend's staying residence overnight.
That's awesome. So this process here that we're going through, that's a great
Tons
topic.
of episodes.
Oh, right there. So this is something called clustering. Has anyone heard of clustering? Yeah? What's clustering all about?
Grouping similar themes into.
Right. So what do we start off with in the middle in terms of Susan's issue?
Problem.
The problem. Perfect. And the problem is the app process. And just like we did right there, all we need to do is, this is clustering, start with other circles, and fill these in with episode ideas. And that's all you need to do. And you could come up with maybe 10, 12 of that nature. And just as we were brainstorming right here, but Susan has an advantage because she has those common issues that people have when they're filling out the application forms. And for you to get that, there's several ways you can do it. Quite a number of ways you can do it. You can ask your target market. You can ask people on your email list. You can put a survey together using a free tool called, anyone know this one?
Survey Monkey.
Absolutely.
As long as there's less than 10 questions.
Yeah. And in this case, all you need to do is put together one question that says, what are your top 3 problems? And if you don't have an email database, send it off to your colleagues and say, hey, fill this out, send it off to other people. The more people you send it out to, the better. Just don't spam people. Just ask them for a favor. And so that's something you could do is ask people, what are some of the top 3 issues that you're struggling with this year in your business? What are the top 3 dresses that you want to learn more about that Princess Diana wore? If you're starting a podcast about Princess Diana, and so forth. So that's a way that you can get these sort of episode ideas. First, by clustering, you put the problem in the middle, and then you put the possible solutions on the outside. And then by asking people exactly what specific issues are you grappling with. Any questions? Any comments? Yes.
How do you prioritize the problems? You know, this might be simple because it's like application, and then once you're on campus and then you're at the end of the year, your exams. But how do you prioritize more general things that aren't just linear?
Anybody want to answer that? Any podcasters in this room? How do you prioritize what you're going to talk about?
Well, you might have a sense already that there's a particular topic or the group of an area that people are really interested in. But if you really want to keep them listening, you may not want to make your first 4 episodes about that area. So you might want to kind of make every 4th episode about that, and then have other less hot topics in between, so people kind of have to stick around.
Yes. So that's one strategy. Anyone else here podcasting want to offer some tips?
Basically, pick the ones you're most interested in yourself, that you feel you have the most expertise in, and you start with that, because you're going to give out something pretty good to start with, and try to get that come along afterwards.
And then my question is, not everyone is going to start listening from your podcast from episode 1. So then how do you sustain that interest at that point? Yes.
I think you've got a main message. So you want to add some variety, so you can go off on tangents from that message, but always come back to it after, like you said, maybe in the same episode, like every episode comes back to that same message, that main idea, or every second or third episode, do something like that. Come back to those things. So someone who may come in after episode 20 will still be able to follow where you were from day 1.
Yeah, you certainly have a theme for your podcast, but you can put teasers in from learn about next time. For one of our clients, it was all about learning, become a better poker player.
Right.
So you've got strategies, tips and tricks, right? So you can say, next time, and we weren't the experts, so we had to find the experts. So it was easy getting great content for each show. You just had to hunt down the right kind of person. But so it's teasers, is linking those, so there's a continuum. And certainly there were the same 3 key messages that we always wanted to get across. And you've got advertising, so there's call to action, so the intros and outros and so forth.
It sounds like you're defining a finite future, because there's so many things that you need to discuss, and then you run out of topics. On the other hand, Susan's clients want all this information in February, March, April. They don't want it in July. It's too late then. Nobody's going to be listening to the podcast in July because they're not applying anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So is it even a continuing series?
Right. So then what advice can you give to Susan in terms of episodes in July?
Jobs.
Huh?
Jobs.
Sure, jobs.
How to rent out your residence when you're not there.
Oh, that's a good one. So in Susan's case, her topics are going to be seasonal, depending on where they are in the application process. So it doesn't have to end. So it's never ending, Susan.
But it repeats annually, so you can reuse that content.
Yeah, and that's another idea.
It's not necessarily web-based. You could be it's targeted. You know who the student is because they applied for more information. You can streamline to them exactly what they need in the months that they're in the application process, and then reset the whole new crop of kids next year.
Yeah, you could set it up as a feed cycle, whereas when someone, if you know you have a finite set of 5 shows, and you must listen to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in that order, you don't want a new subscriber starting with 5, so you can set it up so that they automatically get show number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then you can just reuse them. Just update them.
And that's a tip that I learned from Donna off of her, what's your podcast, I think it was. Yeah, so I didn't know that you could serialize your feed in such a way so that people, no matter when they join, will always get episode 1. So don't ask me. I don't know about the technical stuff too much. And so do you understand the problems, assessing the problems, coming up with solutions, and then generating episodes from that? All right. So what's one other thing you need to plan for when you're thinking about your podcast?
Budget.
Budget. The money lady has spoken. Oh, where's that? Okay. Budget. How much? All right. What else?
Length of time.
Length of time.
Frequency.
Frequency.
How you'll deal with negative feedback.
Ooh. Negative feedback. Has anyone gotten negative feedback on their podcast? Who has? Someone said sure?
You're not getting negative feedback on at least like your blog or your podcast, not really, that's right.
It's true. Yeah, well, yeah. I got my first negative comment on my blog about 3 or 4 months ago, I was so angry. It's like, I'm a likable person. Jeez, Louise. But yeah, it was negative. And so what was my strategy in dealing with that? Do I delete it? No, it wasn't inflammatory or anything of that nature. So yeah, planning on how you're going to anticipate the negative feedback. It means you've reached a different layer. You're now moved from the F list to the D list, because now someone's paying attention to you. But how are you going to handle that? You know? But I was stewing in my bed for like days about that comment. I was just like, geez, I'm so nice. Like, why would this guy say this? But anyways, I left it up, and I typed up a response, and a very angry one. And I decided to leave it alone in my draft folder in my email for a few days. And then when I came back to it, I just realized that, you know, hey, that was my way of venting to myself. Then I ended up just putting a reply that was about 1 sentence long. That was about thanks for your comments, yeah, you know, great, whatever.
If you have no failures, they're not being risky enough.
That's right. So that's a good one. I don't know who mentioned how you're going to handle negative feedback, but that's a good one.
You really, I've written some books. You really want negative feedback, write a book. Editors, some editors, and some people just tear you apart. That's their whole life. Their whole life is tearing authors apart.
All right, so we heard about budgets, lengths, frequency, feedback. How about in terms of hosts, different hosts? Are you going to do it alone? Are you going to interview others? That would be part of the planning as well. And then lastly is also understanding what other podcasts that target your market, what are they doing? So you want to do a competitive analysis and look at what other podcasters are doing who target the same market you do. And this is one thing I like to always leave with you, is that just because every podcast that's targeting your market is 15 minutes in length, and every one of them has an interview style where they're interviewing someone else, and that every one of them are publishing weekly, doesn't mean you have to. It may just mean that you come out going daily, 3 minutes each, and you will claim a lot of subscribers that way. Because why?
Short and sweet.
Short and sweet. You're different. You're unique. So just because the benchmark has been set by 10 podcasts that are targeting work-at-home moms and giving them tips, they're all 45 minutes in length, means that you have an opportunity to do something different. So remember that in your competitive analysis. All right, any last questions?
Does the frequency of the podcast matter in terms of it being regular? I mean, is there a difference between having something that's sort of, you know, you do a podcast when there's a topic to do a podcast on versus having a regular weekly slot where people come out?
All right, good question.
You know, I mean, people blog that way, right? I mean, it's all that people sort of, well, every day at 5 p.m. I'm going to post my blog entry. It's kind of like as and when it happens. What about the podcast? How do you do that?
So how many of you in the room are podcasting right now? How many of you have a regular schedule that you're on? Yeah. Yeah? So every Monday you release a new podcast or so. And why do you do that? And has it worked for you?
Consistency builds trust. That's what I think.
Okay. I think you just have to explain to your audience what your frequency is. If you want to do occasional, that's great. And you say, this is an occasional podcast about gardening or whatever. But if you say you're every Monday, you have to be every Monday.
Yes.
I shoot for once a week, but sometimes it goes every other week. But one of the reasons I do that is my podcast is also carried on a streaming audio, internet radio station. And I just feel that people come to expect it after a while, and they get into a rhythm. And if you don't supply one when they expect it, you're going to start losing them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a podcaster, but I'm a listener of podcasts, and I can tell you that if you don't tell me that it's sporadic, when I get the little exclamation point that it hasn't updated in iTunes in a long time, I'm right-click deleting the feed. I'm not going to listen anymore. If you don't tell me that it's going to be sporadic. But if it's sporadic, I'll leave it on there because I know something's coming in a little bit.
Yes?
We keep fairly regular just because we do, but I know as a listener, I can identify with if my favorite podcaster isn't on his schedule, I get, like, people get withdrawal. You know, you're sitting there like, oh my gosh, the Daily Breakfast is not here. And it, you know, and if they don't do, you wonder what happened to them. Are they in a hospital? Are they, you start to get concerned because you don't know. You get, if people are attached to you as a podcaster, you have to understand that they expect to hear from you. You know, and it's a relationship. So if I don't hear from Father Roderick from SQPN or whoever I'm listening to, you know, I start to wonder, oh my goodness, what's going on? I know he's a busy man, but he does this every day, and why is it not here? So if you do have a schedule, really, really, really follow it. And if you can't, let people know in advance. Say, you know, I'm going on vacation, I have appointments, and the next one will come out on this day. Because then you won't lose those people, but you'll also give them the comfort of, you know, well, he is coming back or she's coming back. But also, what you might want to do is pre-record an episode and just have it released by someone else. Say, hey, buddy, I'm going to send you my file. Can you just drop it on the server for me and let it come out that same day? And you'll keep your listeners happy.
I know one podcaster who said that he never gets any comments, but the first time he got comments, a slew of comments and emails, was the week that he decided not to publish a podcast. And he was like surprised. He said, I didn't even know I had, you know, I didn't know that people even cared. And one of my clients, what she did one week is she couldn't release a podcast, so what she did, she put one of her favorite songs, PodSafe songs, together in a podcast and said, you know, hey, I'll be back next week, but enjoy this music. And she did that, and so that was a way to maintain her schedule and maintain her listener base without losing them or losing credibility. Yes?
I'm not a podcaster, I'm a photo blogger, and sometimes I don't post a picture because it takes time. But I have some pictures that I have stored up in the past year that I can just quickly throw up. There is blogging software that you can schedule, so you can have a few in the bag just in case, and put it on autopilot.
I'm just curious, can you just quickly ask the people that are podcasting in the room what their frequency is? Like, who's every day, who's every few days, who's once a week, and who's more than that?
Okay, hands in the air. Daily.
Yeah.
Okay. Weekly. Okay. Every other week? All right. Monthly? Yearly? Seems like the majority, well, the most hands went up with weekly. So, and what's the difference between video podcasters and audio, video? No one in this room? Okay. The rest of you are audio. All right.
So there's 3 types of podcasting?
There's audio and then video.
Oh,
yes.
I thought you were trying to trick us, and there's audio video.
Yeah. Oh. Yes, you were perfect. All right, so any other lasting questions, comments before we take off? At the end of the day, what you're doing with your podcast is you're creating a sense of belonging, a community. And so what I usually end off my presentation saying is that a person who feels as if they belong becomes a customer who buys. If you're not selling anything, then, well, that's okay too. But this applies if you're thinking about monetizing your podcast, if you're thinking of really increasing your subscriber base. Remember that a person who belongs becomes a customer who buys. And if they feel as if they belong to your community, to your brand, to your podcast, then it becomes easier for you that when you begin to monetize your podcast, beginning to think about making an income from whatever it may be, whether it's ads or merchandise or whatever the case may be, that you'll have a ready audience willing to spend their money with you because you've built that trust. So go forth and plan. And I'm going to go sleep.